if I in January ask you, what's the likelihood that AI is going to get to the point that it's going to be able to, be the best lawyer, pass the MCAT, be able to trick people to thinking that, that they're human, right? The Turing test. And they would say, 99% of them would say, not this year, never. Then it happens. Now, if you ask somebody, they're worried about consciousness. They're worried about, the world going to be taken over by AI now, when the thing can't even do, a lot of things properly, yet they can see the path. I think the same thing we're there. So what's your thinking about this? Have you moved it up yourself? Are these still options?
I call it. I'll go with the theory of it's a call option. I just think the probability that FSD reaches, I don't go with level 3, 4, 5 type stuff. What I go with is, at some point, I think within roughly the next year, maybe even this year, Tesla will say you no longer have to touch the wheel and you can look at your phone while FSD is driving. I think that's coming fairly. There's an intermediate stage before robotaxi.
Mm-hmm.
The intermediate stage before robotaxi is you have to sit in the driver's seat and you have to be ready to take over if the car tells you to. But you can look at your phone. You don't have to touch the wheel. You have a little bit more freedom in the car. We just need you there if something happens. The car is going to pull over and wait for you to take over, right? You can't sit in the back seat. You can't let the car drive without a human in it. And then the next step after that is, okay, you can let the car drive without a human in it. It'll go pick up your kids at school, right? It's really hard to predict, and I think James Dalma is the best one to listen to on this stuff. I think he's demonstrated a better understanding of this than pretty much any other voice I've heard. It's really hard to know when it's going to cross a threshold. Like, it's rising really fast, but we don't know. It's not that we don't know it's going up fast, it's that we don't know where the threshold is. So I think that it's very hard to know when we're going to get there. I can say, like, from my own experience driving, and I actually just downloaded the latest update last night. I haven't driven it yet. I'm now on 11.4.3. For me, what I would call safety interventions are almost non-existent. The idea that I have to intervene to stop it from crashing, it doesn't really happen anymore. It's like it makes lane changes I don't like. It slows down too much for a roundabout. Like, it used to not do roundabouts, right? It doesn't slow down as much as I'd like for a speed bump. It used to not slow down for speed bumps, right? The improvements are substantial, and it's hard for you and me to wrap our heads around. And I think it's something that the Tesla team is better able to wrap their heads around is, what are all the things that it's not doing well yet that it still needs to do better at? And I know it doesn't do parking garages, right? It doesn't do actually smart summon yet. It doesn't, you can't really have the car come and get you, whatever. I think Elon said 11.4.4 is coming this week, probably to employees. And then it'll roll out over a few weeks. But I think version 12 is going to be a big jump. And I think one of the big things to look at is when you read the release notes, you keep seeing the improvements. And let me pull this up. I'm just going to pull this up on my phone right now. The release notes for, you'll see, when you see numbers like this, perception of lanes in city streets improved by 36%, forks improved by 44%, merges improved by 20%, and turns improved by 16%. This is when we talk about exponential improvement. It's like, well, if you improve 40% this time and 40% next time, or 20%, you keep improving by like more than 10% on these various functions. That's a big deal. And I'm sorry, I have a lot of thoughts on FSD. So you will see people talking about FSD and they think that interventions are the most important signal to Tesla about how to improve FSD. And then you read the release notes and
they don't talk about
perception of lanes in city streets improved by 36%. That has nothing to do with interventions. Forks by 44%, merges. None of this has to do with you almost never see in the release notes interventions reduced by X%. Like, that's not how they're met. And James Dalman, I interviewed James Dalman once or twice, and I remember one time talking about this. He's like, no, interventions are one thing they're looking at, but they're measuring 1,000 things that they're looking at improving, and all these things are improving at an exponential rate. And that's a curve going up like this. We just don't know where where it has to get to. And my gut hunch is that Elon, Ashok, the Tesla autopilot team, they have a much better sense of where they need to get to. And I think we're going to hit version 12 in a few months. And then you're going to iterate on version 12, and version 12 is the end-to-end neural nets. And I think that might be the one that breaks through. But if it takes 2 years longer than I think, for
Exactly.
my long-term, if I'm looking 5 to 10
Exactly.
years out, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't
What
matter.
matters there is you need to produce as many vehicles as possible that are robotaxi capable, so that when you flick the switch, the robotaxi revenue starts and grows faster because you're starting from a higher base. Sorry,
Yeah, I think it's
that was a
no,
long
no.
response. I'm not sure I answered your question.
No, no, you did. Exactly. Exactly. So that's my point, right? People go, it's going to be forever, not my lifetime. Then they say 10 years. And now if it doesn't happen in a year, they're going, oh my God, see, it's never going to happen. It can happen in 2 years. And can you believe that we got the robotaxi in less than 3 to 5 years? Okay, I'll give you, it's 2015. You start talking about it. Fine. 8 years, we get robotaxi. Anyways, my point is that like you said, rightly said, there's robotaxi regulation and actually do that. Then you said there's other milestones in between. For me, as an investor, I'm not discounting that there could actually be another milestone, which is just the chat GPT moment, which is there is no robotaxi. There is no, they're not saying, oh, you can now drive without putting your hands on the wheel or stop looking at it. None of that has to happen before the stock can appreciate. All it needs is a moment when people realize it is inevitable this is happening. It's already there, and it's just a matter of time, but not as far away as everybody thinks now. Then they'll start piling in, and that's the moment that happened with ChatGPT, right? The app is not perfect. There's lots of mistakes it still makes, but people realize, oh my God, this is such a step change improvement. And I think that when there's a situation where all of a sudden many drives is so few, people are start seeing it themselves. They go into people's cars. They'll start investing as soon as you walk into a Tesla today. You see it driving on its own. You're going to invest.
So I think that I don't think those two moments are different. I think that the Chat GPT moment is the moment they tell you you don't have to pay attention anymore.
Okay.
It's hard for me to see, because like I take people for rides, and I've been taking people for rides for a long time. I remember back Halloween, not this past year, but the year before, I took people for an FSD beta ride, and one of the guys is a software guy. So it's a couple, and I took them for an FSD beta ride during Halloween with pedestrians on the street, driving through a neighborhood, and they were blown away.
Mhm.
Because you can see on the screen, it's seeing all these pedestrians. It's driving
Yeah.
carefully through a minefield, basically, of pedestrians. I think children walking on the streets in Halloween is probably your nightmare scenario for a self-driving car. And it was navigating it perfectly. And they had that wow moment. So I think generally speaking, people have the Chat GPT moment with FSD beta as soon as they sit in the car and see it for themselves. But not that many people have that. And so that's not really driving the stock. And then the problem with the Wall Street people is they don't, like, I have a model for FSD robotaxi generating, crazy profits, right? Their attitude is we can't model it until it starts happening. It's so straightforward in my mind, like how once you have a robotaxi, it's going to produce $50,000 a year in gross profit, if not more. And you're not going to be that far away from Tesla having 10 million of them. That's $500 billion a year in gross profit. And that's, I don't know, 25x on Tesla's gross profit last year. Right. So, but Wall Street doesn't model that. So I don't know that the Chat GPT moment happens the way that you and I think it should happen or will happen. I'm not saying it doesn't happen that way. I'm just not
Yeah.
sure that it happens that way. And I don't really
Anyways,
worry about, like
yeah.
you brought it up, like, well, the stock price will rise when we have the Chat GPT moment. And like, I'm not worried about when the stock price is going to go up because I'm not selling next week. I'm not selling next year.
Yeah.
I think that there's a path to $5,000 a share. We're at $260 a share, $250 a share right now. There's a path to $5,000 a share, maybe $10,000 a share, maybe more. And it could be a flat curve that rises steeply at the end, and it could be a steady up, or it's more likely the way Tesla goes. It's like up, flat, up, flat, down, up, flat. We're not going to get a smooth curve. And
it's not going to be linear. And I'll tell you the same thing we just talked about earlier in this call. Partnerships and analysts, these analysts, as institutional analysts, we're now hearing them talk about Tesla Energy. Piper just released their price target, and they said that they're going to put 135 on the car business and 135 on everything else, which includes FSD and energy and bot. And I'm like, bang! Finally, these analysts are starting to add. What's going to happen is it's going to be non-existent. Then one happens, and then they'll all pile on. Both partnerships as well as analysts starting to model after this. And that's where I'm saying that, yes, it's going to be far in the future, but it can happen very quickly. It can turn quickly.
Well,
these are moments that will happen.
You keep mentioning the partnerships. I think the partnerships change the sentiment, but I don't see a business model where the partnerships are a meaningful contribution to Tesla revenue or profit. Do you?
Well, software is 100% margin, and they're going to license FSD. It's going to be a moment. It'll happen probably in my mind this year, next year. There'll be another OEM. Some other company is going to say, "I'm going to license FSD," because they're dead in the water today. They have no other options today, and they need to start getting started with it.
I agree that licensing FSD would be a big revenue event for Tesla.
Yeah, even just the first OEM to say that I am now partnered with Tesla for FSD is a huge, like a mind thing for people. Like, all we know is Hertz is the only one buying Tesla cars, but that's not the case. But we all know that because they're the first. It made a huge hit. It's going to happen. So that they can't hold off any longer. It's going to happen. And then that's all software and FSD. Like I said, it's 100% margin. Doesn't cost Tesla anything. And you heard Elon say twice to Ford, we'll partner with that. And so I think that this supercharger partnership is an API into the Ford app, which took them 8 months to negotiate because Ford demanded, and it was a non-starter for them to not have the Ford app. But it makes the two software teams work together. They have a master service agreement. It's a skip and a jump at this point to add other software. ADAS is now going to be regulated by NHTSA. NHTSA is talking about a new regulation that they're approving that says all cars must have full, I think emergency braking. And not every car has that ability. And so they're going to easily partner with Tesla to have that as part of its fulfillment of a law that's coming shortly. So anyways,